So here we are and the system is broke. American dream has gone up in smoke. So stop sitting there all broken hearted. Let's get this motherfucking party started. Lady Liberty is ringing a bell, and we're driving us straight into hell. But don't worry, we got what you need. Crank up the volume till your eardrums bleed. Go and make America again.
Wait, you have a sparkly Hummer?
You do. It's like
an H2
an H2, yeah. I don't got that H1 money, but
and it's Wait, okay, hold on.
It is sparkly. It is. I'll send you a picture. So and it's an original color. Like it's a factory color. It was called Solar Flare. It is orangish. It ombres from a lighter orange to a darker, almost like brown, and it is sparkly, and I'm obsessed with it. It is hideous.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna have to send me a picture.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture because it's hideous and I love it so much.
Oh, it's so funny because I used to, when H2 came out, I was like, that's the worst looking truck I've ever seen. And now that I don't see everybody driving them, and the people who have them have clearly had them for a while or something, I don't hate them anymore. And I realize this it's almost like seeing a PT Cruiser. I'm not comparing your Hummer to a PT Cruiser, but it's almost like seeing a PT Cruiser. When they first came out, I was like, man, this thing's awful. And now that I see one, I'm like, you know what? You keep trucking, buddy. You're part of a dying breed. That's I respect.
It's really funny because I hated Hummers. I was like, those are hideous. And so, but Mark was looking maybe he'd buy one because they don't make them. Well, I guess they make electric ones now. Mine's from 2008. And so he pulled that up and he was like, haha, look at this. And I was like, I kind of like that.
It's actually
and then
nice.
We went on our way to get charcuterie and to smoke a cigar. We stopped to look at it. And Mark was like, this is dumb. And I literally was like, I want it. And we bought it that night. We did not make it to charcuterie.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
You ever say something I don't know if it's just me because I work with people of different races and people point this stuff out to me, but whenever, every now and then I'll say something and I'll be like, that was the whitest shit ever that I just when you said we were on our way to charcuterie and cigars, I was like, that's some white people shit.
Yeah, that's some white. We had our own balsamic because they stopped.
Not knocking it, not because this sounds great.
They stopped giving balsamic drizzle at that particular cigar lounge, so we had our own balsamic in a little container. That is white people shit.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
I traded in my Nissan Rogue for a Hummer. It was a good day. And I love it. I really do. I love having a big vehicle. I'm not a great driver. So I've been in 3 accidents. 2 of them, they were all when I was younger, but 2, knock on wood, 2 of them were winter accidents. So having something like this in the winter here is a life changer. It's a game changer. I feel invincible.
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, we could bullshit about our cars all day.
Yeah, we should probably.
I just got a new Outback. Let me tell you, it's everything they say it is.
Is it a Subaru? It's a Subaru?
Yes. Yeah. People at work call it the Munchmobile.
Yeah.
Because I'm a lesbian for driving it.
Yes,
it's great.
Yes.
I fucking love it. It's got leather interior, heated, cooled front seats. I
have heated seats. Yes,
dude,
they're so hot.
Dude, I can never get a car without heated seats now.
I want a heated steering wheel, but I've never had one.
This has a heated steering wheel. I'm fucking pumped for it to get cold. I'm not, but it's going to be great. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways.
Now that I'm done talking about my car, let's get to the show.
Yes.
Welcome everyone to the A Better Way to a podcast. I'm your host, Jordan. We're waiting on Andrew. He had a bunch of chickens die last night, unfortunately. So he's coming in a little late. But today we have, for the first time ever, we have never met or spoken before at all, Ashley Hlebinsky. Did I say that right?
You did not, which is kind of sad.
We talked about this. You
did not.
Wait.
Which is kind of funny because I feel like we can say
Hlebinsky.
that
Ashley Hlebinsky.
Yes, thank you.
Fuck. Yeah, I remember you saying that last time. I mean,
yeah, so I feel like you should probably say that we totally recorded an entire episode that we threw out.
We recorded an entire episode and it was entirely, I don't know what happened, to be honest. I know I was having internet problems And then
Yeah, like
towards
you
the
were at a
end,
delay. My dogs kept fighting, so
it was rough. But
it was
listen,
not great.
no, but listen, you're here again a second time. So what does that say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd
I
rather
think
you
it
run
says,
this, hopefully, than the last one.
yeah. I can't tell you how much I respect you for being like, yeah, that was probably one of the most unprofessional interviews I've ever been on, but I'll do it a second time.
Like, we'll try again. I mean, it was like also like my dogs were like literally like fighting in the background. So it was not
your dogs were honestly the best part compared to everything else.
So it wasn't like I was on like a super hardcore like professionalism kick that day. I didn't need like my dogs having a fight in the background. People will be like, she has a dog fighting ring. It'll be like a whole thing. And
yeah.
then I just have Melvin and TC behind me.
They have names?
Yeah, Melvin and TC Johnson, both gun designers, not related.
That's cool.
Melvin Johnson, the development of the Johnson rifle, and then TC Johnson did a bunch of different things for Winchester, including modify a Gatling gun to with belts to make it into basically like a Vulcan before the Vulcan was developed, like an early prototype that led to the development of the Vulcan. So Melvin and TC, my former assistant curator who runs Cody now, he named them. They were in,
nice.
I was filming a TV show when they were being shipped, and so I didn't want them shipped to my house, so I had them shipped to the museum, and so they like lived in my office like the whole time, which is fine because I find taxidermy to be pretty creepy. So they're like one of 2 pieces of taxidermy I have of my own, other than skulls and things, which for some reason is less creepy to me. But I don't let my other one see the light of day because it really freaks me out.
Really? Oh, okay.
It's a badger, and
so it's angry looking.
Yeah, so I said make it look angry, and they did. And that badger was not angry when I met it, when I shot it, and I now feel as if I have done a great disservice to that badger's existence by asking them to make it angry.
Have you ever seen, speaking of taxidermy, because I love taxidermy for like for the art form, but if I ever had taxidermy in my house, it would be like one of those fucked up ones. Have you ever seen these?
Those are so good. There was I had a client at the Adirondacks. I was trying to figure out how to think, is it the Adirondacks? It's Adirondack, New York. It was called the Adirondack Museum, I think. Very clever. But they had a taxidermy exhibit when I was there. And there's a video of me somewhere where I got into a case and they had so part of the reason that some of their eyes are crazy, and I'm no taxidermy expert, but like some of the earlier ones from like the 19th century, they had like a finite number of eyeball sizes, so that's why you don't necessarily the eyes look crazy on some of them. So there was one, and I'll see, it was kind of like that, it basically was like that. And so I climbed in the case, and there's a video of me standing in the case with my eyes as big as possible, and we took a video just going down the exhibit. It was awesome.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't know what it is. I feel like if you are in a profession that has such high standards for a baseline, that immediately if you're not meeting that. And the fact that these images still made it to the light, made it to the public.
Oh, have you seen the one that belonged to a king or something? It's like a lion. It circulates the internet periodically, and it's ugly.
Yeah, I
respect the art form. But it's not really necessarily my cup of tea.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm like the world's worst. I hunt sometimes, but it makes me really sad. So I don't hunt a ton. It makes me devastated. So
you do it until your sadness
people are gonna be
full.
You're so lame, but it's really hard for me. My husband and I do an industry hunt every year in Texas. It's a night vision hog hunt. It's pretty cool. I've not seen a pig in the 10 years I've been going. I saw a pig my first year. So I guess we do a good job on that ranch. Yeah. But we see javelina, although I haven't seen. It's a running joke. Our van our truck never sees anything. So we do a lot of predator hunting, and so I got several coyotes. I want to like say coyotes because I feel like it makes me sound cool, but then I feel like
I
I'm a
know.
poser if I say it. But I got
I wouldn't have thought
several.
so until you just said that.
I got
Now if you say
so I got
coyote, I'm
several
gonna call you out on it.
coyotes, and then the last one that I was gonna like take a shot at did this in my scope. And I was
No,
And I was like,
no.
"Can't. I'm out. I'm out." And I said that. I was like, "Guys, I'm done. I can't do I can't. I can never." And, like, I
Yeah,
recognize
they're
that they're
not great
predators.
animals. Like, yeah,
And
but
they do calling, we call for them and everything, which, like, one of the things, like, one of the calls is, like, baby coyotes, and, like, the coyotes come into the baby coyote noise, not because they're like, "Oh, I must take care of these babies." It's like, "I'm gonna kill these babies." So, like,
yeah,
they can be pretty nasty, but it was too much. There was like, "Meow, meow," to the noise, and I said I, like, put my gun down, and I was like, "I'm done." I cannot do this. I'm not cut out for this. I will put my gun away for the evening and just start drinking.
that's hilarious. That's not typically the mindset that makes you a good hunter. So I
No, I'm not.
like or a prolific one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you're probably a great shot, but
no, I mean, I'm like, okay. The truth about me, everyone like assumes I am a really good shot because of how much I work with guns, which we haven't explained to anybody what I actually do for a living.
yeah, we're gonna get
That's
there
all
after
this. We'll
this
get
if you're
there.
still
But
listening,
with my
which they
job,
are.
people are like, "Oh, you must be really good." I would say I'm highly mediocre. I don't, like, get to the range a lot unless it's for work,
Yeah,
and then I'm shooting like a smoothbore matchlock, so it's not exactly precision shooting, so I am not very good, and it's actually it causes me issues on wanting to get better because when I go to the range and, like, people know who I am, I feel this, like, immense pressure to be better than I am, so then I just
yeah,
don't shoot because I'm like, I will disappoint this, like, range full of people if they really see I am essentially a teacher. Those who can't do teach, and
yeah.
but I don't teach shooting, although technically I do have multiple certifications as an instructor, which lets you know what bar is set there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely feel you there. I mean, for as involved as I am with the firearms industry, I like that's a great way to say it. Is I'm highly mediocre. When I
Yeah.
go to competitions, I am placing in the bottom half, sometimes near the middle of I would say the higher third of the bottom half. But
Yeah.
that's like pretty average for me. That's actually a good day for me. So yeah, same thing.
And my
I don't
husband's a
practice as much
professional
as I should.
shooter, is like a hardcore professional shooter, like world records and like all kinds of
That's
stuff.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. So
awesome.
I let him do the shooting.
There,
Um,
yeah.
when I was and I learned, like, people lie a lot about their abilities, their hunting abilities, their shooting abilities, and so I used to take everything "Wow, I'm just really not good at this," and then I learned, like, most people are lying, like, on hunts and stuff, they'll be like, "Oh, and then
Yeah.
I did this, this, and this," and I'm like, "Gosh, why am I so bad?" And my husband was like, "Ashley, they're not being honest, like, they're
That's why practice
exaggerating."
score, like
Yeah,
things
they
like practice score are so good because you can literally look up people's scores and if
yeah.
they suck, it's gonna show.
Yeah. But, it's true story when I, became the curator of the Cody Firearms Museum, the local newspaper, like, did an interview on me, and I, like, jokingly was like, "Well, I'm no Annie Oakley." That was the headline.
No.
It was
They're like,
you know
oh, it's a woman. She's in guns. Annie Oakley, I know her.
yeah, so I wrote, "I'm no Annie Oakley," or they wrote the title was like, "I'm no Annie Oakley, like Ashley Hlebinsky," like new
That's pretty
curator
funny,
of the Cody
actually.
Firearms
Yeah.
Museum, and I was like I felt like I was done dirty on that one, but I feel like they
Yeah.
actually
I
thought
don't
it
know
was, like,
shit. New
clever.
curator.
Yeah. I think they thought it was like I don't think they thought it was a bad thing, but I felt like
No,
it
they
was
thought it was like
I
a humble brag.
yeah, and instead it was like, "Cool. That's
Yeah.
immortalized."
That's pretty funny, actually. So Ashley, for the people who don't know, you are History and Heels on Instagram. What is it that you do?
That is a complicated question. So, I'm a firearms historian, we'll start there, that's kinda like the easiest answer. But I am a full-time consultant. I used to run a very, very large gun museum out in, Wyoming called the Cody Firearms Museum. And I was responsible when I was there. I was there for 10 years. I was responsible for like a complete renovation. We gutted it and redid it. That was my baby. We reopened it in 2019. I started at the Smithsonian Institution's National Firearms Collection, so I've been around lots of gun collections. But nowadays, I do a combination of things. So I have one and a half, I'll say, research centers that I've started. So I've got one at the University of Wyoming, which is in the College of Law. It's called the Firearms Research Center. Super clever. But that one it's very Second Amendment based. It's a little bit more political, although it's nonpartisan. We work really hard at being as much as you can be, right? So I've got that. And then I'm in the process of getting a center started in the UK called the Center for the Study of Arms History. And actually, we have 2 fellowship opportunities. If anybody on here is early career, mid-career change in the study of firearms, we have 2 small. It's not like a lot of money. I think it's like $1,000 like for one and $1,500 for another. But one allows you to go research at the Cody Firearms Museum. So we're getting that kind of off the ground. So that's Ashley in academia. Then I work with a lot of museums. That's like my bread and butter. That's where I got started. That's what I'm probably the most passionate about. Although don't tell because I run that research center in Wyoming, so don't tell them. But right now, I've had lots of museum clients. The LA Police Museum in California is a client of mine. We're actually doing an exhibit on the Gangster Squad right now, which is going to be really.
That sounds like a comic book.
They made a movie about it in 2013.
Was it called The Gangster Squad?
Yeah,
see, yeah.
It's a fascinating story because the Gangster Squad, I'm learning about it as I go with this exhibit. But the Gangster Squad, was basically created to help take down like Mickey Cohen and organized criminals in LA. But the Gangster Squad as like officers also did like the way that they went about arresting and capturing these guys is also questionable. And a lot of them have like they're still alive will say like, we definitely operated outside the law in some respects in order to get these criminals. So that's kind of like it'll be an interesting part of the exhibit. But yeah, so LA Police Museum, I am actually, which we can talk about this a little bit. I can't say a ton, but I can talk about it a little bit. I am building a firearms museum in Manitoba. In Canada.
Oh,
and it's
all right.
kind of fascinating. And I can talk about it. I can't say like a lot because like we're brand new and the collection's older. There was a museum before, but now somebody else owns it. And so we're like getting the land, building a building, Canadian firearms history. Also, we'll have a reference collection on like, right now I'm calling it prohibited weapons because they are like guns that you can no longer own in the civilian sphere in Canada.
Yeah.
It's a lot of machine guns. So that's cool. So I know that I'm missing other museum clients, but those are kind of my 2 big ones. I then also do historical consulting for gun companies. So I've been working with Colt. I worked with Staccato, which I mean, that might sound a little weird to you because Staccato is not that old of a company, but
what is that like? What does that entail?
Well, for them, I was working on 2 things. So the owner of Staccato is actually like a baller gun collector, like amazing collection, like unreal. Like, I want to say, I think he's got like Billy the Kid's Winchester. Like, I mean, I'm trying to remember all my collections. They get, caught up in my brain. So like sometimes gun companies want you to do like histories for them. And sometimes they think they want to build museums. It's a pretty popular concept. So for them, I was doing like historical research and we were kind of, planning if they ever put in a museum, like what that would look like.
Cool.
How would you do like historical interpretation, but then also like the history of Staccato, which, it's got some history, to it. It's still pretty new, but now, I mean, like we talk about the 90s, that's like a while ago. So
I don't remind me, please.
I know.
It feels like forever ago.
So let's see, gun companies, and then TV. I do a lot of on camera, behind the scenes work on TV. Yeah, that's me. I think that's like
cool.
Basically everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, but that's like what I know you from is that and Master of Arms, but we can talk about that later. I remember bringing that up in the last episode and made me feel like you've got a pretty complicated relationship with that show. But obviously,
I
based on what
do.
you told me last time, I don't know if you even feel like rehashing that. That was
We
like
can
that
rehash
was
it. No. Okay, so I had a show on Discovery Channel. It only survived one season, as so many gun shows do. And
it was good though. Like it was
I'm glad to hear
entertaining.
so.
It
Okay.
was entertaining for like a History Channel show. Like I
It
told
was
you, like,
Discovery, just Discovery Channel.
oh
It
yes,
was
yes,
it
yes.
was meant to be the competitor to the knife
The
show.
yes, the other one.
And I couldn't remember when we were talking before, I couldn't remember the name of it, so that's my bad. But because I do not consume, like, pretty much any of the media I'm on. It's just not,
Yeah.
it's not what I do. The only time I watch it is when it's, like, when I know I'm worried I said something stupid, and I just am, like, holding my breath, and that's, like, the only time I watch stuff. But, yeah, so it was on Discovery Channel for a year or one season. Yeah, like, the concept was great. It was a weapons making show. But instead of just making knives, people and edged weapons, they made crossbows. That was a messy episode. That was a bad episode. That was horrifying because I think if I remember correctly, that episode they had to make a crossbow and like no one has experience. Like getting 3 competitors with experience in making crossbows was difficult.
Yeah.
And they do have like a book that like helps them like understand how to make it if they've never made it before. So on the show, I'm pretty sure only one of them broke. They both broke. But we had a clean shot with the one that won, but it totally broke when we were trying to get another shot.
But they still had to say that it won. It wasn't like the
And no,
knife
it
show where if
won
it
because
breaks, you're
it
out.
survived longer than the other one. But yeah,
Oh wow.
but yeah, and guns. They made guns, but that and only early firearms. That was a big thing. Making sure we
Yeah.
weren't doing more modern stuff. Yeah, it was
Showing
a good
people how to make
show.
like a magazine loading firearm.
Yeah, that would not have flown. I remember like they were so sensitive. Like and Discovery, like I don't have any issue with like Discovery. They're really, really like they're really good, like, and I enjoyed everybody's time, but, like, one of the things that, like, I was just telling someone about this with, like, TV is that, like, the reason I feel like programming with firearms doesn't do super well is because, like, the network recognizes that their audience likes guns, right?
Yeah.
Discovery, history. So they recognize that, but they don't understand, like, how to do it right.
Hmm.
And then like you get like Discovery had like Sons of Guns with that horrible scandal and American Guns with like a scandal. So like my background check, because we were in the wake of those two, like the background check that they had to do on all of us was like insane. It was like hundreds of pages.
Yeah, wasn't like the Sons of Guns dude like into kids?
His daughter, yeah, I think.
Oh no. Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean
think it was
that's
his
like that's
daughter,
it.
but I'm not
It's
100%
all
sure. I'll
equally
say
bad.
allegedly.
Yeah.
And then I
Oof.
think the American Guns guy was like embezzling. But like, so they trust these like people that like they aren't necessarily like super well known in our world, but they think
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are. But what
Yeah.
happens is there's this like tension of they want to do the program. They recognize that the program can do well, but then they panic a lot. Like they infuse their own personal biases and they get really scared. And so then they start like freaking out and they end up damaging the quality of the show. So, like, I don't know if I talked about this, like, last time we talked, but, like, when we were doing, because one of my big issues was more the way I was portrayed, and it wasn't that they may portray me bad, but the network made the decision that only one of the 3 of us could be, like, funny, and they chose, in my opinion, the wrong person. Like, I guess he tested well, like, when they did, like, their little whatever, but
Yeah.
he did not read well, like, to the actual audience when we got to that. So they edited out. I don't know if you've ever had Zeke Stout on the show, but you probably should. Zeke was
No.
my co-judge. He's awesome. You'd love him. He was really involved with Sonoran Desert Institute right before, and then he's got another school that he
Oh,
started.
okay.
He's really, really cool. You'd really like him. But like Zeke and I were like really funny, like back and forth, and we would make all kinds of jokes. But that was like they create these like personas, and so like they just edited out my personality. I had someone like tweet that like I have
Oh,
no
it sucks.
personality, and I was like, never once is anybody. They might not like my personality, but never once is
Yeah.
I was boring. And so that was part of my contention with it was I just felt like they kind of edited me like so much that like you didn't think I was an expert. You thought I was reading because they only used my voiceover work, which is reading. They say it in my ear and I repeat it, but what people don't see is I wrote that, like I wrote it. Like,
Oh,
but with the networks, like there was, I can't remember which, like it was the New Zealand shooting or no, it was, I think that there was a California shooting, right? And this happens with so many shows. When we were supposed to release our second episode, there was a shooting and they like panicked and they decided like right before the episode, it was supposed to be an episode on a long rifle. They pulled the episode and they put in a sword episode because different.
yeah.
And so what
Not
ended
a
up
gun.
happening was that like you'd think that's not a big deal for ratings, but the TV guide never updated. So every single episode was the wrong episode for the rest of the
Oh,
season. So
no.
it was like if you wanted to see something or tune in, it was just so confusing for everybody. And so, but that was like a perfect example, like in my mind. I've seen it a million times on shows I've written for and produced. But like there is a shooting, they not in the gun world, understanding gun people say, "Oh god, this is a gun episode. We got to pull it because it's insensitive." But what they're not
Yeah.
realizing is that the
We're not
people
going to be the
watching their
ones thinking that.
shows, yeah, like the people watching their show isn't like thinking like that. They don't think like that. They're like, "This is a long
Yeah.
rifle episode." They're not thinking like, "Oh no," like And so that's what
All
happens.
guns the same.
Yeah, that's what happens is they panic because that's what they would do. And that's what like if you had a more like a diverse range of your audience, like if you had a lot of people that weren't pro gun, they might have that response. But when you know your core audience is gun people, like it just shows a lack of understanding of the culture.
Yeah.
And they do that with like writing content, historical content. They end up like editing it and it's wrong, which is why like the Master of Arms, I was not a producer. I was just talent and I will never do that again because I wanted like our showrunner was great and he gave us a lot of input. But I now like I learned from that, that I will be a producer and I will have post-production say.
Control. Yeah.
Not control, but say.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that's like they do that like and they don't get it. And then the audience is like, what is this? What's happening? Why is this not right? Or why is it like this? Or why did they pull it? And that's where I think they end up tanking shows they spent a lot of money on that really do have potential. It's happened on
Yeah.
like 5 shows I've worked on.
That's crazy because I mean, you'd think that the people in the industry would talk to each other and have some kind of introspection that would help them prevent stuff like that from happening again. But it really doesn't help the stereotype that these like big TV moguls are, lizard people who don't actually do
There are a
things
lot
that
of
like
like
people.
they're super nice. Like
I'm sure.
but
I'm
then
sure.
here is another weird TV-ism was that like I have these cowboy boots. When I was in Wyoming, my friend was engaged to this bootmaker who's like an icon. He made, boots. One of his best friends is Arnold Schwarzenegger. He makes boots for like Arnold and Lady Gaga and Post Malone and Reba, like everybody. Like he's amazing. So he would make me custom boots. And so I have guns on all of my boots. And the network loved it. So like I wore them in like almost every episode. I had one pair, they were FN boots. Because my husband was with FN at the time. And they had a scar on one side and they had a FN-15 on the other.
Oh, that's
And
sick.
and they're like, and they were pink. And they were pink with I think white roses and then barbed wire like leather, like carved barbed wire. And it was just the coolest boots. I think they were some of my favorites. And they were like, no, 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 no. And I was like every time I suggested I wear them for an episode because they had control over what I wore. And I was like, why? And I finally one day was sitting with them and I was like, and they were like, well, there's AR-15s on them. And I was like, it's a boot. Like you're not zooming in on it. But they like would not let me wear those boots because they had AR-15s on them
On a gun show.
on a gun show.
Yeah, that's wild.
So it's a fascinating world. I could talk all day about some of the things I've learned about TV. And the biggest thing that I've found as a struggle is that like it's very difficult to, like, if you're just like a producer or writer or consultant, it's hard to get to the true decision makers at the network. Like, you don't get, like, because I'll say a lot of times to, like, the showrunner, "Just let me talk to them. Just let me talk to them. Like, I can."
Yeah.
And that's just not how it works. And it's so hard to get through to the decision makers, which, like, if I could, I know I could, like, convince them, like, why they should or should not do something, but they're so, like, multiple steps away. And I don't know why it's like nobody's ever given me the chance to talk to them. And I think it is because that's just how it is, that they're so divorced from everything and they're making decisions based on like the formula of like normal TV that they don't get that gun people are different.
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes it, well, like you said, it's like they're not dealing with a particularly diverse audience. Like as far as interests go,
Yeah.
it's a gun show. It's not like a true crime show where you're going to get a wider variety of people that are into it and a
Yeah.
wider political like lens. And that wasn't the right word, but you know what I mean. Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's a shame because I feel like there's a way that we can normalize gun ownership and especially modern firearms, you know, in the way that the majority of gun owners see them,
Yeah.
being not too far off from how most people do, because the majority of gun owners are not unlike most people.
Yeah.
But like we keep doing this hands off, you know, like verboten behavior around modern firearms, like now Glocks with switches and whatnot,
Yeah.
but ARs especially, you know, and it continues to mystify them for the average person, and it continues to other them the way that we other
Yeah.
people that we don't understand, and it doesn't help as far as the understanding goes, or the you know, the fear mongering that
Well, and it's
surrounds it all.
interesting too, the way that they a lot of times they want a woman on the show, but they don't. It's like when you see women on TV shows with guns, a lot of times like they're a stereotype. They're, the
Yeah,
beautiful tattooed, woman, or the dark, has kind of the dark vibe. Or like the full on, blonde bombshell, whatever. I had blonde hair, but I was not a blonde. I definitely wasn't a bombshell. But like when one of the shows I was a writer producer on, I worked on like from the beginning of it to right before the production. I didn't work on production. It was all pre-production. And at the 11th hour, the network decided they wanted a co-host. And so the showrunner was like, here's the person that put all the content together. And they kept like dragging it out and not giving an answer, and not giving an answer, and not giving an answer. And they like unofficial, I'll say, but definite. I know it was the reason they didn't want a woman. They
as the
wanted like
co-host,
what's that? Yeah,
as
they didn't want a woman. They didn't think it was relatable. This
ugh,
unofficial, we'll say.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's. I find that because everyone's like, oh, of course they want a woman because it's diversity, right? But I find that. I think that we have that same issue of like them not understanding gun people and doing weird stuff with the guns in the episodes. I think I live in a weird world for them because I'm an expert.
yeah. I'd
And
say like a not expert, you know.
like I'm knowledgeable. I'm gonna say I'm pretty. uh, I'm not ugly. But I like that like they don't know what to do with that. And I think a lot of times
Yeah,
they think that the audience won't believe me or like me, which I mean I think did happen when they edited me the way they did on Discovery Channel. But I think it's like they're kind of like, well, our audience is like curmudgeony old white guys. Like they're not gonna get it, right? They're not gonna
yeah,
vibe her. They're not gonna understand her. And what they don't understand is I am a old curmudgeony white guy myself. I identify as such, and like
yeah,
old gun collectors are like my friends. Like that's who I hang out with. I smoke cigars. I drink whiskey. So like they don't know. They don't know. They don't know what they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know. And I'm like I kill with that demographic. I always have.
yeah.
Um, because
If
you
they
know
let
what?
you be you,
They tend to not like they're not as judgy as people think they are. Like people were always like when you were in Wyoming, like was it really like were a lot of little ladies and did people treat you bad and like not take you seriously? And I was like literally like never, never. Like it sometimes like they might look suspicious in the first 30 seconds, but like
hmm
within a couple minutes, like we weren't Like there was no disrespect. I think like ever. If anything, I was more discriminated against because of my age, because I was young and I looked like 10
Yeah.
years younger. But yeah, I think that a lot of times they don't know what to do with me because I'm not like, I don't know if you like big boobs, I'm not like the gun bunny stereotype. So now I'm like the expert stereotype, but I don't look like what people expect gun experts to look like. So then they think that like it's not digestible, which I get.
I it's funny you say that because I don't know what this says about the community in general, or maybe the stereotypes of the community, because I do personally think the gun community in by and large is extremely open and accepting, and like it's really just a loud minority that makes the shitty stuff more front and center.
Yeah.
But and this is probably something having to do with my internal bias, but like I feel the opposite when I see a gun bunny, like a stereotypical gun bunny. I assume that somebody placed a gun in their hand, or that and there's exceptions, obviously. Like it's not, I don't assume that, but that's my initial reaction.
Yeah.
And like you said, within 30 seconds you can tell whether somebody knows what they're talking about or not.
See, and
But
I used to like I actually you can't really see. I mean, that chick in the background there, she's very naked. She's super naked, wearing a
oh,
shooting vest, holding a Bob Allen uh like long gun case, and it's
yeah,
actually a gift from Bob Allen to John Olin, who ran Winchester. The Olin Foundation, or Olin bought Winchester out of receivership in the 30s, and so the family still was involved. I love like gun bunnies. I love like depictions of women in firearms. And so I always used to say there was always a difference between a gun bunny and a booth babe. Booth babes
oh,
were paid models, most of the time.
yes,
Like a booth babe was a model who had a gun put in their hands. I spent a lot of time with booth babes. I befriended a lot of booth babes, but yeah, they're professional models. They do all the
yeah,
trade show
yeah,
circuit. They're not. They are the gun in hand. I don't believe gun bunnies are that. I believe they have an interest in it. Maybe they do like financially see an opportunity of like finding a niche of like, okay, well, if I am into guns, then maybe I can make money off of that.
for
But
sure.
I tend to believe gun bunnies are a lot more knowledgeable. Maybe not a lot, but like
No,
more than
with
you
that
would
distinction, it
assume.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
more
with
than you
that
would
that
assume.
distinction actually makes sense, because
Yeah.
I would say like a booth babe is completely different than a gun bunny in that context, and that makes sense. It's nice to have a spectrum of people who hold guns, and it's the same thing as like with guys. You can have a guy who looks like he's knowledgeable because he's old and he has a gun, but is a total fud when it
Yeah.
comes to the actual knowledge. and
Knowledge. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
the difference being he's not even paid to do that. He thinks he knows what he's talking about.
That is a
Where
very big issue in the industry,
yeah,
in the
yeah,
community per se. It's funny, when I first was, like, getting going in the industry, used to do, like, a video series for Recoil, and I wrote for Recoil all the time. I love Recoil.
yeah,
But
recoil's cool.
we would do all these lives at SHOT Show, and it was ridiculous. Like, Dave Merrill would, like, follow me around SHOT Show and, like, put me into weird clothes. Like, I, was in a ghillie suit walking around the show. One time there was, like, this, like, giant cowboy boot. So they put it on the side, and I crawled into it, and then I was like and they like put it up, and I was in the cowboy boot, and I did all kinds of like funny stuff
That's
for
awesome.
them. So one year we wanted to do, because I had very blonde hair and I have hair extensions, and so I did have hair extensions. We were gonna do Undercover Gun Bunny at SHOT, where we were gonna stick me in a booth. I was gonna hold a gun and like let people come up to me and then like, like drop firearms history, like
Knowledge. Yeah.
drop like,
That's
you know,
sick.
yeah, we were gonna do that. But like when I was running the museum, like I really needed to be taken seriously. I
Yeah.
wasn't at that point. I was not the one running around wearing the ghillie suit. That was years later. So like it was gonna be like the first thing that I did. And I was like, I was like, I don't know if like I think it's hilarious, but I don't know, like I have to think long term for my career. So we didn't do it. And then I don't know how possible it would be for me to accomplish today.
I think you could do like you're obviously very recognizable, probably compared to the beginning of your career, but I definitely feel like you could get, if you didn't have a line of people waiting to take pictures with you. I definitely feel like for the average person at SHOT Show, like you'd probably have a 50% chance.
Yeah.
And especially if you had a different color hair and,
which I
an
do
outfit
like
that you
every
didn't normally wear.
6 months.
Yeah, exactly. You said your car had an ombre, and I was like your hair. At least on my screen, it looks like it's like red going down.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because of the lighting in here, but it's like a darker red, and then there's like 4 different colors of red, and then blonde. So it's cool. I just got it back in yesterday.
Cool. Yeah, there's nothing
I'm sure
like that for
everybody
guys,
was really interested about.
Listen, I used to think getting my hair like tipped blonde was really cool because back when
that was
like,
cool
Backstreet
back
Boys,
in the day.
At one point, but not on me. I did not pull it off. I went straight from like a bowl cut to that, and I didn't know how to rock it. I had like it was a very strange time. But anyway, it was my formative years. A lot of therapy to fix that. But
so I have a transition. Because last time we attempted this, we didn't talk about history, which was kind of funny. So we're talking about gun buddies and booth babes, and I actually collect naked ladies and guns. That's like my thing.
Are you about to put a naked lady on the screen?
Yes. Is that okay?
That's fine. I can. The people who are on, is that person naked? Only because I can't tell, but probably for YouTube we'll have to blur it. But we can do that.
So this is a Winchester ad. And the Winchester was like the best at it. And they're all foreign. Like Winchester wasn't doing this level of risque in America, although they did hire Playboy to do a lot of their photo shoots. But she's being branded by the logo, which is
that's funny.
So great. I won't pull any other down, but right next to it is another Winchester ad, and she's naked like from the side, and she's got a shooting vest on, and she's got a shotgun between her legs, and the translation, because I think it's a Spanish ad, is riding shotgun.
That's awesome. Yeah, they don't. I feel like, what was that, like the 70s or the 80s?
Yeah. And
wild times.
So it is actually kind of funny because this is what I collect. And when I was in grad school at the University of Delaware, I did my undergrad, I did my grad at Delaware. And it was kind of interesting because everyone knew I studied guns. I got accepted into my master's program studying guns. But like my first semester of my master's degree, I was doing a research and writing seminar at Hagley, which was the DuPont Powder Company.
Sorry, just a little jump scare most of the way through the podcast here.
So Hagley was a DuPont powder company. So like, I mean, of course, right? I could study, and the research and writing seminar was on product packaging. And I was like, well, I'll do ammo boxes, powder company. And they said no. They were like, you need to branch out. You need to do something other than guns. And I was like, weird. So I did cigar boxes for that year. But
Sick.
Is that really branching out though? I feel like that's still kind of the same culture.
It's the same culture, but it wasn't, pew-pews. So then the next year I did my other, Delaware's master's program. They discourage theses. A thesis. Is the plural
right.
thesis?
Like plural.
Theses?
I think it's
that
thesis.
sounds,
Yeah. My
sounds
5
bad.
years of high school Latin are 4 years because that's how long high school is. Are telling me that it should be.
You're
theses.
not helping. You're not.
Yeah. I don't know. maybe I got held back. I don't know. Y'all don't know. I'm kind of a moron.
So they discourage somebody doing a master's thesis because they want to encourage people to go into the PhD program. So they instead do two research and writing seminars. Because if you're not planning on going into the PhD program, they'd rather you have 2 articles, like solid articles that could be produced into journal articles. They felt it was better for that. So my second year, I was like, it was about it wasn't advertising. It was something, I don't remember. But they kept them very, very open so that you could really pick anything. So I wanted to do gendered advertising in the late 19th and early 20th century. And they, again, came back and they were like gun advertising. And they were like, I think you really need to branch out. And so I was like, okay. But they let me do gun stuff. So I ended up with all of these naked lady posters because I started digging into I want to say, I think it's Guns. I think Guns magazine. Like Hugh Hefner started there, like when he was like super young. There's like
I didn't know
connection. That. Yeah, there's something like that. There's some connection to it. I might have gotten that wrong. It's been a long time since I've looked at it, but I know there's some connection to Playboy. with a gun magazine. I think it was where like Hugh Hefner was working like early on in his career. But so Winchester in the 80s, I think it was the 80s, they had the Bird Buster series. And so they actually hired a Playboy photographer. And the Bird Busters are a lot more clothed, most of them, though there are some edgy ones out there. More clothed than what I just showed you. The US version versus the European Winchester was very different. And their portrayals. I'm sure. You missed, Andrew, naked. You missed a lady butt. I pulled up a picture.
That's okay.
A real lady butt.
You missed a woman getting branded by the Winchester logo.
Oh, wow. I am
I'll describe it to you after the episode.
So I started studying these naked women like advertisements because I thought it was really interesting how in the 80s, especially that late 80s, you start seeing this kind of resurgence of like acknowledging women in the gun world. In 89, the NSSF starts recording the number of female hunters that are getting licenses every year. Women in Guns magazine comes out. Smith and Wesson re-released the Lady Smith. But basically like the mid to late 80s is a time when like the industry is acknowledging women. So it's kind of like an odd juxtaposition. I was going to write about the male gaze because of course, and so that was what I started on. But then when I started doing the research, that's what led me to radical armed feminism in the 60s.
Metal.
Like led you to researching it or led you to like adopting it?
No, researching it. Although okay. I did know she just passed away.
Like
but
based either way.
I did know one of these women was a professor at Skidmore College. Her name was Mary Stang. And she's like, she was one of these feminists like her. She's in books, and stuff. And I loved her to pieces because like my first conference that we did at Cody, because I've said this before, Andrew, you don't know me, but I don't do politics. So I try to get like diverse opinions representation across the spectrum of either like the political spectrum or also how people feel about guns and all of my things, which is really can be quite edgy, especially when I was like starting my career out. And so I had the CEO of NSSF at our conference because he was on the board of Cody. I'm not that good, but so like I had him in the room. I had the director of the NRA Museum in the room, and I had like there were like 20 other people, and I had Mary Stang, and I didn't really quite like I met her at a conference. I didn't quite grasp, exactly. I just knew she wrote about like feminism and hunting was like one of her things. And she gets up, she takes the mic or her serious, and she goes, "I'm Mary Stang, and I am a liberal feminist." Like,
just gotta set the mood, set the vibe.
And I'm like, oh God, going.
We're doing this.
I'm like, oh no. And it was great. The whole conversation was great, but I was not like expecting, because like back then, like I was really, really liberal. Now I'm nothing. I would say I'm absolutely nothing. But back then I was a hardcore liberal Democrat too.
Achieve nothingness.
I was undercover, right? In Wyoming.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. Like I was a registered Republican in Wyoming, but like was super liberal. And I was like, oh no, like what have I done? I'm never coming back from this.
They're gonna know.
They're gonna know.
So, even like 10 years later, I sat at the airport. This is a true conversation. I still to this day don't really ever let anyone know where I sit on anything because professionally I can't because I do a lot of court stuff. But I was sitting at the airport and a gun, like a security guard comes over to me, like one of the TSA people, and he goes, "I heard you're a liberal."
What?
From who?
So
wait, what?
I go, "From who?" And he goes, "You wouldn't know him?" And I was like, "Then how does he know?"
Yeah, what are you talking about, guy?
So first of all, how dare you speak to me?
Yeah, well, Cody was a teeny airport, so I talk to people all the time. But yeah. Oh God, it was so funny. I was like, "What? Well, then how does he know?" It was fantastic.
That's funny.
That's alarming. That's funny, but also kind of like,
Yeah, I think we talked. I brought this up when we had our failed episode, but like I very much like it was in within a 24-hour span. I was called a shill for the gun industry by a university, and then within 24 hours, I was called a woke anti-gun academic who ruined the Cody Firearms Museum. So like that. It's just par for the course. That's the world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They fear what they don't understand.
Yeah. They're like, where is she?
They
but
fear
yeah,
women.
I keep getting away from my radical feminist because I feel like we should talk about it.
Yes, Stang, Mary
Super
Stang.
interesting.
Yes,
Mary
yes,
Stang.
yes.
So she was a segue into it. So what I started studying was this juxtaposition between like gun ownership and like in the 60s because of the civil rights movement, increase in violence in general in the US, assassination, like prominent assassinations.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not getting into that. But so there's the academic world really starts studying gun culture in ways that they really hadn't before. And you see like this kind of split off between like your hunting, I want to say militia because there was militia, but then militia means something else too in that world. But you're kind of good old boys, you're hunters,
Yeah.
which was what the NRA and stuff was back then. Because the NRA back in the day was like, we'll never put a black gun on the cover of our magazine. So like they were like that. There was that sporting culture, and then there were, the hardcore self-defense people. So you start getting this like study, and what I found was that it was 60s and 70s specifically, because the 80s is the rise of kind of the conservative, like militia movement that like people talk about. So like 60s and 70s, we talk a lot about liberalism and leftist activism. And then when you get into the 80s, there's a lot of conversation about like conservative, like militia movements. And like that's where you also get, I said Ruby Ridge, I think is in the 80s. I think, because I don't study that. So I don't study the 80s, but yeah, so I found like all of these like pamphlets, which I probably have sitting somewhere close. I bought them on eBay when I was doing research. I focused mostly on armed feminism, but I did a little bit on armed female African American civil rights activism because they very much felt they didn't have really any place because like feminism was very white. So they didn't really fit there. And then like there's a really interesting shift over for like the Black Panthers. Women used to stand behind the men in the Black Panthers, and then there was a change where they would stand next to one another. And that's where and there was a lot of like androgyny in the way that women dressed so that like I did a little bit on that, but I didn't go super deep into it. So I studied these like armed women, and they're wild. Like I kind of wish I had like asked Mary more about this like earlier, like when she was still alive, because they were wild. So you had the second wave of feminism, the sexual revolution. You had like basically two prongs and I'm probably way oversimplifying this, but like in feminism. So you had the feminists that were anti-gun. So like that definitely was still a thing, that wanted to work within the structure to topple the patriarchy. And then you had these women who were like, burn it down. And they were these armed feminists, and they were wild. So the Weather Women is a group that people talk about. I mean, they're the ones with like, they don't care if they're breaking the law, right? They're going to do what they need to do. And so I have this Women and Guns pamphlet from the Women's Press Collective, which was a lesbian publication out of, I think, San Francisco. So that was interesting. And then I also, I'll say as a kind of the aside of it, there was also this like leftist activism, radical activism, because Berkeley put out this I think it's either firearms or handguns and self-defense for radicals, revolutionaries, and easy riders, which is like my favorite title.
Wait, when was this? This was in the 60s?
I think that
70s?
was 65, maybe. Yeah, the Women's Press Collective was 1970.
What a fall from grace.
I've never heard of this.
Now.
Yeah, so I'll send you pictures. I'll find it and send you pictures.
That sounds awesome.
So what I also find funny
and
about
easy riders?
Yeah, so what I also find funny about it is that like their little like who we are declaration page like literally could be like conservatives too, like today. Like I read that and I'm like, yeah, it pretty much sounds like standard libertarianism. And like so this pamphlet, it's kind of interesting because Berkeley, which you would never kind of expect today, but you actually could take a firearms course at Berkeley. And they have this like iconic, like they have this magazine, and on the back of the pamphlet, you actually can see it, which is a hippie family, like mom, dad, baby, and they're holding ARs. So like fascinating people.
Yeah.
And so like this period was so interesting to me because this is the opposite, right, of what you think about when it comes to kind of leftist activism. But I mean, we also have very hardcore leftist activism because of the Vietnam War and everything. But and part of the reason why I kind of dipped into civil rights was because of the Black Panthers and the Mulford Act in California, that basically was an act that just was to make sure that they couldn't carry guns openly.
Yeah.
How very like 1700s of them, but
yeah, really, and still to this day,
very conservative.
Yeah. So I found these pamphlets, and the Women's and Guns pamphlet, they're very colorful. Like, they're very hardcore. Like, in the self-defense for radicals one, there's lots of, colorful depictions of cops with that look like a certain animal that you could probably
colorful, not like artistic.
No,
really
colorful as in like there's
see.
one where it's like, what is a pig, and he's got like a bandage, and like so like really colorful is the way I'm going to put it.
Yes.
And the Women and Guns pamphlet as
spicy,
well.
maybe?
Spicy, yeah. The Women and Guns pamphlet as well. Like in the radical one, there's a lot of like Mao Zedong stuff. There's a lot of like yeah. There's a lot of that. So yeah, and the Women and Guns one is the same. Like, they have these like cartoon, it's all cartoons. Like, and so like there's like one where some guy's like, oh, you're a perfect little 38, and she like pulls a revolver out in the next like cartoon, and his mouth's a target, and she's like, however, did you know? And there's like so there's like this like not serious part of that like I feel like if you were like a regular gun person today, you'd be like, oh, that's a little dicey. Although the Women and Guns one's more funny than like how hardcore the other one was. But what I was struck by was how good the information was. Like, how quality the information was. So like in the Women and Guns pamphlet, I mean, it had not just firearm safety, but they had diagrams of a semi-automatic pistol, diagrams of a revolver, labeling all of the parts, instructions on proper stance and grip. They had like a listing of like popular handguns, how much they cost. So their information was like freakishly on point, which I feel like you don't necessarily see in like that world today. Like, normally if someone was like, oh, a feminist has gun stuff, like they wouldn't know about guns, right? They like put something up that wasn't right. And this was like really, really good, well-researched, like knowledgeable information in both of those pamphlets. So both of those audiences, very good information. Interestingly, they both, I believe, have a whole section on gun laws. Which I thought was really valuable. And then the Women and Guns one had the story of Inez Garcia. And I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember a lot of it. But basically, Inez Garcia was raped. And I believe I think it was her, and I think there might have been someone else. They basically found the rapist, and she killed them, and she went to prison.
Oh yeah.
And she got out on appeal because it's not like a self. She didn't kill them in the moment. She went and found them and killed them. So I don't know how she got a really good feminist lawyer that got her off ultimately. Seriously. I believe she was convicted, and then I believe she was on appeal. She was released. I don't think she was acquitted. I think, it was probably like,
it could have been like a jury, like a nullification thing. It could have been like, this is technically illegal, but like, I get it.
Yeah. Wink, wink.
Valid.
But yeah, so this was like kind of like their patron saint of like the movement, because, this part of the feminist movement was about like women burning their bras, the sexual revolution. But it was also about women protecting themselves from rape.
Who's the one that in her like mugshot she's got cuffs on, and she's like, it's just like this really iconic picture of this lady that like killed a rapist or a number of rapists.
No, killed her husband who raped her. It's the one on Yeezy's shirt.
Oh, that's where I saw it recently. But it's like
Dead Men Don't Rape.
Yeah.
I forget her name, but
I don't know her name. What was interesting about that, like the women's pamphlet specifically, was it was very much, and they both have citations for their sources, and they are actually using NRA. They're using, I keep wanting to say the Standard Catalog of Firearms, I think it was still around then. I think that's right. I always get it like Blue Book sometimes mixed up. But like they were referencing Tom Givens, who's still around, who wrote a book in 1980, because I have that book too, about women and self-defense. Like they were referencing like real gun sources, right? Like they weren't like so there was no like, it's the NRA, we're not going to do that. Although the NRA,
this is really interesting, because I feel like today even the really like serious ideologically pro-gun side of like conservative culture really consumes a lot of pro-gun content that is low information and just sort of like riddled with like, you know, like advertisement and you know, sort of like maybe infotainment, if I'm being generous.
I don't know. I don't consume that.
Yeah, well, good. You know,
kind of stuff.
yeah, but it's like it's just like you're describing something that I just feel like I don't see a lot of this kind of thing anymore. Like these
Well, but
days.
what's interesting that I find interesting, and I can't, I was saying before we hopped on here, I've never spent time trying to see if there's a direct correlation, but you've got these women who are like, we've got to arm ourselves for self-defense. And they're putting out really good information. And then by the 90s, you know, by the late 80s, like I already said, we get, you know, the gun industry really like acknowledging that women are like a part of this, like in a hardcore way. It's not that they hadn't, like, there's lots of ads from the 19th century where they are marketing to women. So it's not like they like weren't aware, but like you see this like larger scale embrace coming into the 90s. And I think it's 94 when Refuse to be a Victim from the NRA becomes a thing. I think it's 94. And I just find it really interesting because the trends and the narratives that you hear in modern gun culture today about women and self-defense very much looks like what these armed leftist feminists were talking about in the 60s and 70s. And actually, a fun little anecdote, I was speaking at a rally in DC years ago, and it's an organization that is it's Women for Gun Rights. It used to be called the DC Project. What's cool about them, I was with them for a little bit, but I can't for my career. But what I always really liked about them was that they had people who were Democrats, they had people who were Republican, they had trans women. Like they were really good about that. So they asked me to speak at this rally, and I was like, what do you want me to say? Like, I am like the last person you want to like get people excited at a rally, right? Like I'm here to put everyone to sleep. Like I'm not
my vibe.
Like, yeah, like I'm like, and they were like, well, we'll just talk about the history of, you know, women and firearms. I'm like, okay. Because that's the exciting. You rally and you talk about history, which I have actually spoken at multiple rallies, and I find it really funny every time I get asked because I am like, I'm about to give you a history lesson. Everyone's like, you know, rah, like, and they end on this like super intense note, and then I come out and I'm like, in 1895.
Yeah, right. So you kind of feel like more of a seminar person than a rally person.
Yeah. Then I call to
just speak louder.
Yeah, I'm
just
like
yell.
Just speak very loud. But yeah, so I get up there and I'm talking about, because I talk about this a lot. I don't always love when people are like, women and guns is this new thing. Like, I think it's fine to say that like there's been an influx in women in the industry. That I think it's like, you know, Black women is one of the like fastest growing demographics. Like that's fine, like to say that. But I felt like maybe 10 years ago when people were like, women and guns, like it felt very much like it was like a novel, like people were treating it like it was novel, and it's not. So I talk a lot with like women's groups specifically about how women have always been a part of gun culture, and how people recognize that from a pretty early on. So like I kind of gave like a quick, but then I brought up my radical feminists, and I ended on the fact that, you know, I find it funny that today's feminists scoff at, like third wave feminists scoff at women who want to own guns to protect themselves, but then conservative female gun owners hate feminists, and that basically or feminism, and that basically they both have each other to thank for where they are today.
And
that's how I ended it, and it was great. Like everyone loved it. But what I thought was funny was there was a bunch of guys like holding flags and stuff. And one of them had a cardboard sign that was like leaning up. And I was walking down, it said like the Second Amendment doing more for, you know, women's rights than the entire feminist movement. And I was like,
like it's a bit myopic, but you know.
I was like, Well, that's a funny thing to see as I just finished on the fact that like the
Yeah.
feminist movement was very, was like a trailblazer and
Yeah.
women carrying and women protecting themselves. So I just thought that was really interesting. So that's like I pivoted from like naked ladies and guns and then I just like that's my like personal hobby is I collect all of these naked women. But then like I switched to the armed feminist because I just found it so interesting that we had also these women and then these like super hardcore like gun ads where women are
Yeah.
fully nude getting branded and I thought that was kind of a in the academic term juxtaposition.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know yeah
This
so
like dichotomy of
it's cool.
juxtapositions are great. It's a $5 word, as my grandfather would say.
Yeah.
Danny, who was the assistant of Cody, now runs Cody. It's like we have a podcast together. He hates that word. He hates like academic made up words and juxtapositions kind of like that.
They're all made up. What is he talking about?
That there's one that's like completely not a
What?
word that we use. Problematize. No, that juxtaposition is fine. He hates the word problematize because it's not a word. It's something
What does that
academic.
mean? Like to make something a problem?
Yeah, like you find a problem with it. You problematize something.
I mean, it makes
But
sense.
that was like, it makes total sense. We knew exactly what you were talking
Yeah.
about. So whoever made up
Exactly.
that
Danny
word did a
hates
good
it.
job.
So I
with
say
it.
it all the I say it all the time.
it
Good
sounds
job.
like he's problematizing the situation a little bit.
He's problematizing the situation. Although he and I make up words all the time, not on purpose, but because our brains work too fast.
That's how words are made, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Somebody did that by accident for a lot of words, and we still use them today.
And that's language.
exactly.
But yeah,
That's language.
so it's really interesting that what you're talking about, where it's like people are like, well, feminism is anti-gun, but that's a really short-sighted. That's like that's an ahistorical take, right? That's like if you're looking at just today, right, at just the culture war, brain rot, and kind of like division that we have today.
Well, and it's just one side of it today.
Yeah, right.
Well, and what's interesting is a lot of people don't know about this armed section of the feminist movement
Right.
because the feminist movement was anti-gun in the 60s. Like, like the more well-known part of it was not necessarily pro-gun. And so people just don't really realize that this subset or this subculture of feminism existed back then. And I just think it's really interesting that they were like probably putting out better information than a lot of like the gun sources at the time.
Yeah. Because they weren't
Yeah.
necessarily in it for advertising dollars. They weren't selling pages to advertisers. They were doing this ideologically because it's something they believed in.
Exactly. So my dog just came in, and I have this.
buddy.
Show me the dog. Show me the dog, please.
Show us the dog.
I'll see what I can do. We gotta back up.
Big baby,
Come on,
big boy.
Yeah,
Come on.
she's got like two
my
or three,
goodness.
right?
Baby,
Large baby.
sits.
Oh,
Is that a
hello.
black
yeah,
German
so-
Shepherd?
Oh my,
It's-
I don't know, but I want it.
She's my
He's
my
a
other
good
dog now
baby.
thinks that there's food. My other dog's not.
Oh,
So he's a black German Shepherd. He's a
Yeah.
West German, like full working line
beautiful, beautiful.
German
Oh.
Shepherd. And my other one is was feral.
Yes.
She was
So
genuinely
you could
feral.
say they're juxtaposed.
They're juxtaposed. If you want to problematize
Yeah,
my
right.
breeder dog, you
Yeah.
have to juxtapose the fact that I also own a feral mutt.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's super interesting. It's really cool. I personally, because I don't do like politics or like publicly take a side on things, like I like finding these moments in history that problematize.
Yeah.
That,
I'm using that word all day today.
Yeah, it's it. But like I like to find these moments in history that are kind of the opposite of what you expect in the gun culture. For not just like gun people, but also people that don't like guns.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for us trying to have a functional conversation or debate, if you will, to be able to say like, look, this isn't what you like stereotype it to be. There's nuance to it. There are ways that we are similar that you may never have known about. So like, that's why I like finding lots of those little things. Like people don't realize most of the time that one of the 8 original complainants of Heller was a gay man. Who was attacked. Well, that wasn't. I think he pulled his gun before he was attacked. And he's actually a libertarian commentator now. I did not know that.
Really?
And
who's
he
it?
does like Fox News and stuff. Like I think he does like I think he's like in the speaking circuit because I'd like him to do a talk for my research center. And so I was trying to see like where he was at. And I was like, oh my God, like I think I probably should know who he is. But yeah, so like people don't realize that, right? And that, so one of the original 8 complainants, because there were others, was a gay man. And that's why Pink Pistols wrote an amicus brief that said that gun ownership was a matter of life and death for the gay community.
Fuck yeah.
So like I also like pointing those things out because it is. I mean, it totally, blows your perspective off of things that you think you know about, and especially because like so many people, know Heller, and love the Heller decision. Obviously, if you're a gun person, how can you not like the Heller decision? But, then you're able to kind of say something that they wouldn't necessarily expect, which is that you have the gay community also to thank for, standing up and help, and being a part of the process for the, what ultimately becomes the Supreme Court's evaluation.
Right. And so
I think that's what I love, finding that kind of stuff that makes people like not uncomfortable, but like makes them think about,
like cognitive dissonance,
the things that they don't normally think about, which I think there's so much of that in the gun world. The gun world is so much more diverse than people ever, like historically speaking, than people give it credit for. And so I try to find that, and I try to use that when I'm like in more of your traditional gun audience, and I try to do it when I'm especially with like people that really despise guns, to kind of show them that this isn't like, because all the articles about people, new demographics carrying guns when Trump was elected the first time, I'm like, this is not new, like, yes, there may be an influx, but this is not new, kind of like women. So I think it's interesting. I think it's super valuable, especially being in my position where like I'm not coming from a place of judgment, like for anybody. People tend to respond better to it coming from like me because they don't expect to be judged for where they were at before and where they're at after. I just kind of am like, okay, well, let me tell you something. That you may or may not change your opinion, but here it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, they're really, I think that's a place that we've always struggled as a community, being an as impartial as possible deliverer of information to the people who need it.
Yeah.
And because it's really hard. I mean, as a person, it's really hard to, when you know more about something than someone, it's really hard to explain why.
Yeah.
And what that information is without sounding condescending.
Right. Without sending them running.
Yeah, exactly. Separate from that, the majority of people have no interest in doing that. They just want to be right half the time.
Yeah.
Or more than that. And, so I think when people find someone like you delivering that information, and, you've got the first 30 seconds of meeting someone where they're like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. And then probably just through speaking to you, they're like, okay, this person's probably not an asshole either.
Yeah.
It's a nice, like,
you're
like, okay, you're much more open to receiving the information.
Yeah. Well, and I think we talked about this in the last, I keep saying we should call it the lost episode.
Yeah, seriously.
I think we talked about this a little bit, that like, I don't want to say battles, because I don't actually get confrontational with people, like almost never. I can read if someone is open to hearing something and if they're not open to hearing it. And I don't, it's where we said like we differ, right? Because you'll just yell at someone all day long, and you do that, that's where
I don't want to, but it does. I put myself in that position.
Whereas like I can read the room, like, well, not that you can't read the room, but like I choose to read the room. Now I just insult
No. I mean, listen, there are people who know me very well. Yeah,
it's terrible. But like I choose, like I read the room, and if I don't think there's any like reason to have the conversation, I'm not going to have the conversation. But I do find that people are far more open to information than most people give them credit for. Like I will tend to stand up a lot for the media. Not always, but like early on in my career, I mean, I did interviews for everybody because I was at the museum. And like I found that reporters, journalists, they more often asked a question out of ignorance than intentional malice. Now, I would say maybe things are a little bit different now than they were like 15 years ago, but I always kind of felt like most of the questions that I got, they would be, if you didn't so I didn't grow up around guns. So like, I am not like, so I get it. Like I was in academia, I didn't really understand gun culture until I started like working in it, because I wasn't a part of it. And so, like, I would be like, oh, well, they're asking that because they don't know. Whereas, like, someone who's like super immersed in the gun world would be like, oh, why are they asking that? Right.
Yeah.
You're like coming to it with a different perspective than like I would be. So then I would be like, oh, well, actually, what you're really thinking of is this, and this is why it is. And I found more often than not, I pretty much, I think I've never, knock on wood, had a negative interaction with the media. I think my most negative interaction was with Ted Koppel, and he apologized.
That's awesome.
How did that go?
That was, oh my gosh, that was such a story. So years ago, I think it was like he moved to CBS or something. I can't remember where he started and where he went. And like, let me just say, I was aware of Ted Koppel, but I didn't know what his like claim to fame was. I did not know until after this claim to fame was like interviewing like Muammar Gaddafi and like intense people and getting them to talk about stuff. That would have been solid information to have had ahead of my
somebody's job was to tell you that, and they didn't do it.
So this is where it got funny. So he was like, it was like new. He was either at like CBS or whatever. He had just switched networks, and they were doing an episode on guns in America. So there were all of these different segments, and I was working on a segment on history, and I was working with the segment producer, and we had come up with like everything and like all of this. Well, one of our board members, Bob Modell, who is a really like, so a lot of people know who he is. He's a big time hunter, Boone and Crockett guy. He is a Rockefeller as well. Really good dude, super gruff. Well, he's really good friends with Ted Koppel, which is, I love that too, right? Like you got your super gruff, conservative, and like you're like liberal journalist, right? Like I love that. And so he's like, so he starts talking to Ted, who has to do a segment for this, and is like, come to Wyoming and do something on gun culture. And so Ted's like, okay. So we are talking to two separate segment producers about two separate topics. They decide we can't double up on Wyoming. So they go to my old boss at the Smithsonian and decide to do the history segment at the Smithsonian. So it'd be different, but nobody told me and nobody told Ted. So we're in the museum. I'm like 25 maybe. So like I'm like brand new. I'm like very nervous about like saying one thing and like ruining my career, And we're talking ahead of time, and like really nice guy. Like I really I have a lot of respect for him. We're talking about stuff, and of course he's talking about how he had a gun when he was younger or something, shot a gun that they haven't to relate to, And he asked me why I got interested in guns, and I said, well, I grew up wanting to be a doctor because I have a lot of medical problems, and I got interested in guns through the history of medicine, specifically battlefield medicine. He's like, wow, that's really interesting. So we get on camera, and he goes, so how did you get involved in guns? And so I started this story. He interrupts me and goes, so you went from wanting to save lives to things that take them. And then I immediately started sweating.
Oh, no.
And I'm standing in the museum as a representative of the museum, right? Which is even more hardcore. I can't be political. And I'm sweating now. I'm like, oh no. And he just keeps asking me about like the origins of the politicization of firearms. And back then I really didn't know anything about that. I wasn't studying other than like some of the stuff I did in college. I really wasn't like, that wasn't my focus. So he's asking me, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. No, I don't know the answer to that, And then we would do like, and this interview went on for like an hour plus maybe. And it was so nerve wracking. And so he like, we're doing B-roll, so just the camera, and they're getting you walking through the gallery. And he's like, okay, so now that we're not, doing the interview, like, what do you really think? And I'm like, well, we still have cameras on us, and I still have my microphone attached. So I'm not answering that question. I'm very good at like, I was very good at media training at, I
never get hot mic'd.
Yeah.
So then we're all done. I get everything like off, and they like package everything up, and we're walking out of the building, and I answered one of his questions. He goes, oh, so you did know the answer? And I was like, yes. And I wasn't going to say it on camera. And then 2 days later, we were at the shooting range, had like, what are they called? The kids, the younger youth, farming,
Appleseed?
hunting.
4-H.
4-H. They had the 4-H kids coming out. And so the shooting range was like, hey, can you just like come out and just make sure that this is like above board, you know? And so I came out and I remember getting like pulled aside by Ted. And he's like, I just want to say that I'm really, really sorry. He's like, I was unaware that you were there for a history interview. And he's like, and I was there to interview you about like gun culture. And he's like, I did not know that you had been working on this other segment and that no one had informed you why I was here.
There
And he's
you
like,
go.
so I'm really,
Yeah.
really sorry.
Well, that's really professional.
That's nice.
And but then
Yeah.
he said, but you didn't give me anything that I can use because I didn't say anything political, which is a huge compliment.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be in the interview.
Oh,
And so I have a photo of me, and if you like with Ted, and if you look behind my sunglasses, like I'm crying,
Oh, no.
because I thought I failed, right? Like I thought like I was so bad that like they can't use me, and like I had to have it explained to me later, like no, that was a compliment because the only thing he could use would have been some like a sound bite, and you didn't
Yeah.
give him one,
Like you goofing.
which was sick. So like now I find it really cool, but in the moment I was like, I'm such an imposter. Like, and so
Yeah.
yes, there's a great picture of me and Ted, and if you look behind my sunglasses, you can see that I was crying
Wow.
because I thought I had failed in my life.
Well, I mean, hindsight's. I mean, at least you know now that it wasn't a bad thing, and that you know,
No.
at the time it sucked, obviously, but
Yeah, no,
it's
but
not something
yeah,
that
it
you
was.
just get to relive every moment of your
Yeah.
life.
And what
Yeah.
what a sweet thing for him to take the time to
Yeah.
to say to you.
Yeah, no, that's why I really liked him. And he was really, it was like to pull me aside. Cause like a lot of times, like, you know, you do interviews and then you get edited out anyways, like, and you don't know why. I get like interviewed all the time for like news articles and then I'm not quoted because I don't say anything like inflammatory.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I'm super used to that. So I mean, yeah, I would have just like been really excited to watch the episode and promoted it, and then I wouldn't have been on it, and I would have looked dumb. So I appreciated it.
Yeah. Well, and I think honestly, like for what you're doing, that's really to your credit that you know, that you don't say or do inflammatory things lends a lot of credibility to like you know, the information that you put out there. Like you and I could say the same thing, but I think that you would have much more credibility than, you know, the guy that jokes about shooting ICE agents, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, you know, so they're not going to put, you know, like, you know, let alone that I didn't, you know, go to school for any of this stuff or whatever. But I mean, just that, all other things being equal, I think that if you have like a long proven career of being like professional and respectful, not that, you know, everybody like has to be respectful all the time, but I think it really does help with, you know, getting across like history and like factual information.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that like I do sometimes get frustrated because like I will say something and then all of a sudden I'll hear it being parroted by like, you know, like figureheads.
Sure.
And it's
It's like,
like
that was mine, bitch.
well, no, not that.
I said that.
Well, no. So like it's kind of like shut up because now no one's gonna believe it.
Yeah. Oh,
When
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
they're
Yeah, that
gonna
makes
think
sense.
that like
Oh.
I'm just
Yeah, like
doing
you're
a
ruining
talking
it for me.
point that the famous person like did the, you know, talked about it. So now, you know, it's not my information. I'm just like a talking. So that's actually a story. I testified in front of the Senate subcommittee years ago. I was brought out by Ted Cruz's office and on privately made firearms, and it was a ghost gun committee. And what was funny was I found out like the Thursday before, and I had to be there like I was testifying on Tuesday. And so they said, you
Yeah.
don't have to write a paper, but if you want to, you have to submit it by like Monday at 10 a.m. So I wrote like a 20+ page history report that then got put in, like entered in. And it was really interesting because Blumenthal, I had a really interesting conversation, like back and forth with Blumenthal. But what I found so funny was I think I had red and blonde hair, so like this, but more blonde. I was wearing a pink suit because I'm an idiot, and nobody told me you're supposed to wear black or navy blue on the Hill. I was Elle Woods Goes to Congress. Like I was the sequel of
Yeah,
Legally
but people
Blonde.
like that movie.
Yeah, well, they do, but not when it's, you know, as someone who's supposed to be taken
That's
seriously as a gun expert.
amazing.
So I'm sitting there and so that you get 5 minutes, right? Like there, you do not go over, there's a time counter in front of you. So I wrote my speech out, which is not something I normally do. I'm a very off the cuff speaker, but I was like, I have to get these things out. So I'm going to write it and I'm going to read it. And so I wrote it out and I practiced it and timed it, and it was like money. And then all of the senators sitting on the subcommittee get to speak first and say their piece. So all of the Republican senators, their staffers, took stuff from my report, which is like totally understandable, but they were reading things that were in my report, but not crediting my report because that we got 5 minutes, right? So they're saying things that I was going to say. And I'm like, well, I can't say them now because they're going to think that I just like got it from
you were just like taking notes
I'm
like
sitting
right
there
before,
just scratching out like whole lines in my thing because I'm like, well, I can't say that now because like they're gonna just because of like what I look like and like who I am. Like they're just like for the people who had no idea who I was, I'm like, they're gonna think I'm just parroting what the senators wanted me to say, right? Instead of the fact that, the senators were using what I had written. So I thought that was really funny because
That's
like
crazy.
when it comes out of somebody like that's mouth, and now it's like this is gonna sound bad, but like it's like tainted, right?
Yeah, it's like it's the
like
it's like
when
the worst person makes a good point.
Yeah, like it was, and it's the people have such like there's so much dehumanization on both sides now of different people that like it so if somebody says it, it's automatically not going to be right no matter what.
Yeah.
And so like when everybody was promoting like suppressors years ago and like the Hearing Protection Act and like there still are, but like you would get like Don Jr. was a big proponent of it.
Oh my God, that was so
very,
annoying.
very knowledgeable about it. And he was very knowledgeable about it and he had every right to talk about it. But, when he started using the words that are true, about hearing protection, the origins of suppressors or silencers, it became more difficult for me to have that conversation behind the scenes because now,
100%.
it had grown like, like Dana Lash too, like all the people that are super well known, like they're smart, right? And they're like, they have every right to say it, but it becomes more difficult than someone like me who's more behind the scenes, like in comparison, to be able to say it and have somebody take it as seriously, even though I said it first, or like the scholars have been saying it for years kind of thing. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, the messenger is very, very important. And I struggled when I was doing all the expert witness stuff because after the Bruin decision, it's become very volatile in the field. And so I went from doing expert witness work pre-Bruin, where both sides were like, thank you so much. Like, this is great. Like, I learned so much, to having to make me out to be a monster. And so like all of a sudden the other side, which is usually the state and federal governments, are like, you have an NRA membership, so you're the devil. Your husband works for a gun company and you're the devil. And like, I had to be the devil in order for them to win, because you have to get the expert thrown out, or you have to get the expert to have bias, right? And I'm probably not like, honestly, I probably back then, maybe I've been a little bit more vocal since, but they never were able to find anything. Every court case I had, no one was ever able to find something I had said. It was all tangential. Awesome. Well, you run the research center and David Kopel has said this and you tweeted that out.
Yeah.
Like, so it was always tangential. But that was where like, I noticed that like it was going to change for me because I have to be this like super hardcore pro-gun person in order for the other side to be like, to win. And so I was like, oh crap, if I keep doing this, I'm going to become far less valuable in a public education sense because the verbiage of like the pro restriction people is going to like, I'm going to get bigger and bigger and it's going to get like, people are going to project more and more onto me. And then all of a sudden,
they're going to start
no one's going to listen to me because I'm this hardcore pro-gun person that, lies in court, and so that's part of the reason why I stopped that. And I didn't like the phone calls I was getting for people mad at me for testifying.
I don't blame you.
But yeah, so it's just kind of, it was kind of interesting. I started becoming that person, like not through anything I had done, but other than taking the job. So I stepped back and was like, I can't do this because I have a much greater impact being boring.
Yeah.
And non-judgmental.
But you're not boring. That's the thing is like, I don't see, and maybe this goes for me too, not being a kind of person who consumes like internet gun media. Really, that's designed to be infotainment and not just informational. But like, I don't see objective information as boring because that's what I search for. That's what I seek out. I don't want something that is sensationalized and tailored to make me to scratch my biased itches.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Get
want
that
something that's going to
dopamine
make
flowing.
me think. Or
Yeah.
exactly.
So-
Well, I get dopamine in other ways, but
Yeah.
that's, I don't want it to come from my shit
Your
that's supposed to
sponsored
be
post.
educational.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what's kind of interesting is the research center, the one in Wyoming, we're doing a conference in November, which I was like, I don't even know what month it is. So we're doing a conference next month, and it's at Springfield Armory National Historic Site. So I'm trying to keep it very 250th because what people don't know, apparently, is the 250th started this year, right? Like the war started this year. So we 250th stuff. I mean, technically, actually, if you want to be Portsmouth, New Hampshire had issues going on last year. So the 250th in Portsmouth could have started last year. So we were kind of trying to make it because we're going to be in New England. And so we wanted to make it very 250th oriented, but then also bring in this Bruin decision conversation, which the Bruin decision basically put history as one of the greatest, if not the greatest determinant of the constitutionality of a gun law, which I think is wild. And the most important time frame is the founding era, which is around the ratification of the Second Amendment. So a little bit later than obviously the 250th. But so I wanted to kind of have a combination of we've got the curator of Colonial Williamsburg and the curator of Springfield and an archaeologist who's been doing ballistics on early battlefield stuff. But then I wanted to infuse a Bruin conversation into it. So we've got, on one of the days, we've got a disarmament panel, and we've got a militia panel. And it'll be interesting because we've got someone that's kind of giving general New England centered militia, what the militia was, what did it mean? Then we've got a friend of mine who is a professor who believes that she has an article that she's been working on about how she does not believe that comparing militia laws is an analog to allowing 18 to 21-year-olds to own a handgun. And then we have Joyce Malcolm, who is a very pro-2A scholar. She's the Anton Scalia, professor of history at George Washington, I think. So it was we're infusing that. But my favorite thing is the night before, our director, George Moxery, who is a very in his research, he is a pro-2A scholar, which is why I temper my research center. We have a pacifist. I try to balance, now as a fellow. So he is doing a fireside chat. I'm going to moderate it with Megan Walsh. And Megan Walsh is an adjunct professor at the University of Minnesota. I can't remember what is the name of her research center now. She's a part of a gun violence prevention center in Minnesota, and she was an Everytown lawyer. And could not be sweeter. She's just really nice. The first time I met her and in one of our academic settings, I had she and our colleagues, I thought oh, they must not get along. That's not true. They're very they're very collegial. They're very, friendly. So I asked Megan because I know she's very intelligent, and two, that, this can be a real conversation and not a combative one. So we're doing it as a fireside chat. And basically, because this is one of the things that I think people need to think more on, they're going to pick topics that are being used in the courts right now. So with magazine capacity conversations, you get a lot of the founding era sources. So the pro-gun side will say, well, militias required a minimum amount of ammunition to be carried. So that's minimum. So therefore there's no, maximum. And then the other side will say, well, in some colonies, there were these fire prevention laws that, regulated how much powder you could have in your house. So then they say that's restriction. And then the other side will say, well, actually, those are fire prevention laws. And those laws were so people wouldn't blow up the town. And they've still they were still allowed to have 28 pounds of powder in their house. But and the powder then went to a public powder magazine. And so they're going to pick topics like this, founding era topics, so revolutionary era topics. And they're going to explain how both sides are utilizing the same history in their arguments. I'm so excited to see one, because I don't actually know if even I've really seen, other than the court system, which is so combative, a truly intelligent back and forth with both sides present. And so I'm really excited about that, because that's the other thing. You mentioned objective history from the way you were describing it with sponsored posts and stuff. But the other thing that people don't understand is that's not objective history. Like it exists in the
Yeah,
sense that like, the war happened in these years, right? But the actual like history and the way that it's interpreted
it's
is
way
so
different.
subjective. And so I just
Yeah.
I hope that we'll get like a diverse audience present on. So you can, by the way, we're going to live stream it and we'll post the video afterwards. So the people can be in person or online. So I'm hoping we get like people who are across the spectrum, because I think it's so valuable, because I think the people who are pro-gun, the people who are pro-restrictions, expanded restrictions, like they only hear their side. And then they're like, oh, that person's an idiot. Why would they ever think that? And vice versa. And so I'm like, this is an opportunity for you to hear it in a non-combative way from two people whom I know I have a lot of respect for and their knowledge. And I know that they will treat it with respect, even if like you still don't agree with, what the person's saying, or you still think that stretch, whatever. So it's just a really cool thing, because like so often, like I will also, so I talked about other people saying my talking points, but the other thing is that people oversimplify things that like I'm saying, because you have to have a talking point, right? So I'll also hear like, well, facts are facts, and that's that, and there's
But
no
like without
debate for it.
nuance, without certain
Yes.
context, like you can say something in a certain way to make it sound like something else entirely.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I don't know. I find myself in a very weird position, but I like it. I like what I
Yeah,
do.
no,
Oh, yeah.
but it should be uncomfortable, and like or it should be weird. I mean, that's weirdness is uncomfortable. It's
Yeah, I
feel
think
like
if everything that you believe is like hard lines and black and white, I think that you've been lied to, or you've been sold something,
I kind of like sometimes wish I could think that way. I feel like it'd be a lot. Well, I'd be a lot more famous if I took a side. I'd be
It's
a
very
lot
comfortable.
more famous.
I think that's why a lot of people find themselves there.
But see, I like doing mainstream TV. That's the other part of it. If I start rally crying, that's going to go away.
Becoming a political pundit.
Yeah.
Yeah, then it's going to be an issue.
You can't come back from that, which is fine for a lot of people. But for me, I know what I like to do. And I know that if that were the case, sometimes like I said, I think it's easier. I think it'd be fun too, but I just know that that's not long term. That's not for me. Maybe when I'm a little bit older, if I decide to, go rogue, I will. But as of right now, I'm still very cautious.
Let the brakes come off. Yeah, no, I hear you.
But when I go unhinged, it's going to be unhinged. Like when I finally decide it's coming out, like
the wheels are really coming off.
No one's protected.
I can't wait. That'll be a good day for sure.
I think I might be on my deathbed, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it's going to be like, I'm going to write an autobiography and then I'm going to be like, and goodbye.
I know I said it before, but I'll say it again. It is really refreshing. Like we have, obviously we don't stray away from politics on this podcast, but it is nice to have someone who, what I tell people, or what I try to tell people, is that we live in an environment where, unfortunately, the second you give a political opinion about something, half of the population is going to start looking for a way to label you as an enemy. And what it does is it closes the door to so many productive conversations that could have otherwise had if you didn't show those cards.
Yeah.
And there are things that I will say that go against the grain of, a large group of my friends. But I'll do it with them intentionally because I know we can have a respectful conversation.
Yeah.
I don't do that when I have, and it's not, I don't believe any of my beliefs are out of malice at all. I'm not like an authoritarian person or whatever, but I do know that they would rub some people the wrong way in certain settings. So I know if I'm going to have a conversation about violence prevention, it's irrelevant what guns I own.
Yeah.
And that person, I don't need to talk about how I own an AR with multiple 30-round mags and all that stuff, because at that point, the people who are trying to solve the gun violence problem are going to look at me as part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate.
It's such a shame you can't, vocalize that. And, and the other, something I remember saying to my husband when we first got together was me trying to get people, because the gun world is also very black and white a lot of times. Now it's diversified a lot more recently, but it's very black and white, where if you aren't like 100% Second Amendment, then you aren't 100% guns. I had to explain to my husband once, not explain, he's a very intelligent man, but like, the perspective of like gun ownership isn't an identity for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just owning a gun,
Yeah.
they inherited it or they bought it and like they don't actually use it, or okay, maybe they carry, but they don't like to sport shoot, because like you also have to look at me, right? Like I love firearms history. I love what I do. Do I go to the shooting range for fun on a Saturday? No. That's not my idea of fun. I don't do that. Will I do it professionally? Will I do it so that I'm like, if I need to? Yes. But would I ever wake up and be like, this morning, I'm going to go to the shooting range? No, I have too many medical problems, to be honest. Shooting is very painful for me, not just like during the act of it, but like the next day, I have like a problem with my joints that like it's a mess. So like, it's just not for me. It's just not my area of interest. Like, I want to go, like, I don't know, drink a fucking martini and have a cigar and like watch a burlesque dancer. Like, that's my idea of a good day. Or go to
With
a drag
guns.
show. Like, that's my idea.
Yeah.
So. And that's fine, but people like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, like people think I'm a really good shooter, but like trying to get hardcore gun people to understand that owning a gun doesn't have to mean you are political. It doesn't have to mean it is your identity. It doesn't mean that you then have to align on abortion or, the legalization of marijuana. Like,
Right.
It's just a thing for some people, and that is okay. That is something that I think gets completely lost with a lot of places. And I think it's what pushes more and more gun owners to be more pro-restriction because they don't feel like they're a part of this community. They feel like that, they're like wacky over here. And that to me is a huge issue, is not realizing. I mean, I was even on a podcast with like a friend of mine, and they were saying like, if you're a gun owner, then you are all in on the Second Amendment, or you are a Second Amendment advocate. That was it. If you're a gun owner, then you are automatically a Second Amendment advocate. And I honestly, it wasn't like in that scenario, it wasn't worth getting into it because it was a shorter interview.
Yeah.
And it was multiple people, so it wasn't necessarily like also attributed to my belief system. But like, but it's that mindset that like, that's it. Like if you own guns.
It's the same as when people, discredit somebody's experience as a gun owner because they don't vote conservative.
Yeah.
Well, you don't vote conservative, so you're not pro-gun. Well, has it ever occurred to you that the person might not vote conservative because they're like, the politics in our country are fucked?
Yeah. I say,
Like,
because there's a lot of talk about like single issue voting, and they're like, the Second Amendment protects all your other rights, so that should be your only issue. And it's like, well, there's a lot of gay people that are pro-gun, but don't live in a place where they feel like they can like give up the pro-gay politicians. They can handle gun restrictions and live with it, but they couldn't do the opposite.
Yeah. And that was like when I was in like college, I think I took one poli-sci class like you do. And I remember them saying like, pick the three things that are most important to you and research the politician on those three things. And that's how you make up your mind. And so like, and that was part of the conversation, with my husband, is that it may not, like, you could be a gun owner and it may not be one of your top three things, especially like if you're just like a passive gun owner, like you have it, like you thought maybe you'd use it, but you don't really use it. So I find that like difficult for the gun community to be able to deal with like one another, is because like it's all or nothing to so many people. And when it's all or nothing to you, now you have a group of gun owners who may have supported, hardcore Second Amendment, less restrictions. They may have done that, but they see them and they're like, well, I'm not a part of that because they don't want me here. So then they're like, whatever, I own a, 7-round, handgun. So I'm not a problem, even in a state with like a high capacity or the 10-round restriction or 11-round restriction or 15-round restriction. So like, I feel like the industry, the community pushes away a lot of people, which is kind of unfortunate.
It also leads to misrepresentation of the larger like demographics of gun ownership, where it's like, you think about the gun community and you have a picture of the loudest, most extreme members well, I wouldn't say members of the gun community, but people that own guns, right? But then there's a huge sort of like unheard segment of people that are just not terminally online, that are not like making their voices heard because it's just not the most important thing to them. And when they do make their voices heard, if they're not 100% absolute gun rights, to the max, which is what I believe, they just get trashed. They just get thrashed in this like online gun space. And it's so fucking unhelpful, I think, to make people feel like if you don't agree with like this line of thinking, that like you are not contributing to the community.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned I like finding weird things for people to like, have a better, like more nuanced perspective on guns. And what I do find interesting today is I remember Lara Smith messaging me because I Liberal Gun Club, because there was a representative doing like an interview for like, what is it, like the 98% or something? I think it's like 98%. It's a group of gun owners that are pro restriction. And so they were doing like a survey of like the Liberal Gun Club, of people at the Liberal Gun Club. I may not have the details completely right, but they get to the assault weapons conversation, so quote unquote assault weapons. And what they don't realize a lot of times is that they go to like, gay organizations, or they go to women's organizations, or they go to Black organizations, or whatever, and they start in on the conversation of like magazine capacity and assault weapons. And I don't think people on the other side realize that some of the hardcore, like the people who are the most hardcore about their ARs, are the non-traditional gun owners. Your Montana, Wyoming, backwoods, not in a rude way, but like rancher, maybe like, no, you don't need a suppressor to hunt, right? Like that's
Meanwhile,
ridiculous.
the trans gun girlies are like, we're literally doing felonies on camera today.
Yeah,
with
I do think
guns.
I do think that like I think like the other side would be they were surprised when they were talking to like Lara, because they were like, okay, yeah, and then like the ARs come up and they were like, no, we love ARs. Like, and I think that's kind of interesting, because I think you're more likely to find a group of, old white guys who are going to say, the one I hear most often is, because I feel like ARs are becoming, pretty universal amongst gun people regardless. But like, I do hear the silencer and hunting thing a lot from like kind of your old school gun guy. Like, so like you feel like you're more likely to encounter that with some of the people you would consider traditional than the other, which I think is kind of funny. But that goes back to the 60s and 70s, right?
Some of that's just like cultural too, where like I know there are a bunch of conservative dudes that I had known in the gun community for a while, and personally, that were very like pro HPA, pro suppressor, all this stuff. And then there was like one point at which Donald Trump was like, nah, suppressors, those are assassins' weapons, after some sort of like high profile thing happened. I don't remember what it was. And then all of a sudden it was like all of these people that I know that they are on record being like, everyone should have unrestricted access to suppressors in the NFA. They're like, you don't even need a suppressor. I've never thought that anybody needed a suppressor. It's not important to me.
Yeah.
And so we definitely have like we're in a weird time right now that I think it's unprecedented, where the like fanboyism for politicians, like one or the other. I don't think there's a leftist, like a liberal version of Trump, but like the people who were really into Kamala or Biden, they'll just as fucking weird, like socially, like they weren't. It's like they don't believe flags on their trucks or anything.
Yeah,
but they were like,
I'm not just talking about the Kamala stands, but like all of these people. It's so hard to get a read on like where people are philosophically, politically, morally, because like you talk to the same person years apart, and depending on what their like favorite politician says, they've completely changed their view. Not because something happened to them, but just because like the people that they read, that's what they're saying now. And I start to get the sense, if I'm being cynical, I start to get the sense that like, a lot of people just don't actually have like strong beliefs about any of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and it's tough, because like I always say, like, so I don't, speak publicly on my opinions with firearms, but you won't really hear me saying much about like abortion or, like other big hot topic issues, because I know how utterly complex, and detailed, and like I know it so intimately on the gun side that like, yeah, I can have like people can have their opinions and that's fine. But like I would not dare open my mouth on something that wasn't guns because like I know that if it's so nuanced and it's so complicated for guns, it's gotta be like that for every single topic. And so I just am like,
Yeah.
I'll have my opinion and whatever, but like I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna acknowledge that I probably don't know 99% of the actual thing going on here right now. I mean, I
This
learned
is
that a little
why
bit with the
you're
court
a
stuff.
treasure. This this is why you should never change, please. You're truly like, we need to preserve you in whatever Han Solo was preserved in, because and studied, because why are people not like this?
Yeah.
Why can't people admit when they do not, when they're out of their element,
Yeah.
or that they don't know everything enough to form an opinion?
Yeah.
You just put a sticker on the page about this.
Yes.
It's
Yeah. Slow down the speed in which you form an opinion about things you don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. When the one thing I learned a lot from the court stuff and working with the College of Law is that, like, just because a law is overturned doesn't mean, like, this was
It's
something that was
right or
hard to,
wrong.
yeah, this was something that was hard for me to, like, to initially stomach, was that, like, just because it was overturned doesn't mean that the people believe that it, like, that they don't believe in it, like, right? But if it was faulty
Yeah.
law, that's why it gets overturned, even if you don't agree. Like you could be a judge
Yeah.
in theory. Judges are becoming such activists that it's gross. But technically, like you could be a judge that is pro-choice and have ruled for against Roe v. Wade. I don't know all the specifics, but I'm using that as an example. Like it doesn't mean that judge is pro-life. It also could be that the law was faulty. And and now if the law was faulty, let's fix it, right? And that was something that I had a lot of trouble stomaching, and I was dealing with the fact that it's not about the actual topic. It's about the way the law is written. So it's not that this wouldn't be better or worse. It shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be in the court system. I wish it was, like, to some extent, not in an activist way, but just kind of like, wouldn't it be great if we did this and we can prove that it does this? But that's not what the court cases are about. The court cases are about whether or not the law is written in a way that is constitutional, but it doesn't mean that it means one side is right or the other. It just means that how the law was written. And I think that I wish a lot of people understood that. I didn't even quite grasp that until I was working so much on these cases.
The case of Roe v. Wade, how the law was never written, even though Democrats had many, 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 many chances to write a fucking law about it.
Yeah. And then everyone gets really mad, like, at the courts. And it's like, well, if the courts are functioning the way that they should, which, trust me, in my expert witness cases, I got really biased judges, like, just hating me. So I know it doesn't always work that way. But in theory, it's actually not about the thing. It's about the way it was implemented, the verbiage of it. The actual topic should not really be the deciding factor, the way it's set up now. But yeah, I mean, I found that kind of interesting, and it's the same. Like, sometimes it's hard for me because I was thinking about this. Like, I have lots of friends in the gun world, but they're people I don't see. I only see them at trade shows or whatever. The people I hang out with, like the people I spend.
We'll
the
hang
most
out with
time,
you at SHOT Show.
What's that?
We'll hang out with you. Oh,
okay.
We need to get a cigar together at SHOT Show.
Yeah. I need to figure out what day I'm filming a TV show because every year I lose my voice for the TV show and then I sound like gravel for an entire
Perfect time
season.
to have a cigar.
Okay. But like most of the people I spend a lot of time with or like have like had friendships for like 20 years hate guns. Like,
yeah.
So
well, because
much.
You probably were friends with them before you were into guns. And,
Yeah. Like, and not even, I mean, I have like this running joke about, and I don't know what it is. I was just talking to someone about this. I develop a vegan hippie friend in every state I move to, at least one. It's like kind of my only friend for like really long stretches of time. I don't know what it is, but I sat them all at my wedding, like at the same table at my wedding, and it was really funny.
All the vegans?
Vegan.
Logistically, that makes sense.
Vegan / hippie. So not all my hippie friends are vegans. Some are vegetarians or pescatarians. But like, it's usually like it's a vegan or it's a hippie or it's both. In every single place, like so many burners, like in Wyoming, it was so many burners. I moved here and my first friend is vegan. I wouldn't say she's a hippie. She's more like dark. She's not goth, but like she's like goth if goth grew up and didn't put black lipstick on, but still wore like witch clothes. Like old-timey, like Victorian mourning clothes, So every place I go. So I just think it's really interesting because it's hard sometimes for me because I'll see them post all kinds of stuff that I know factually is not right. Like the statistics aren't right. You can and like in my opinion, you can still feel that way, but at least have your information be correct. At least justify it in a way that's correct. And I never say anything to them because I'm always like, why? I'm like, they know I'm here. I'm like,
this is why whenever the Kyle Rittenhouse thing was going on, it was a very hot button issue. I never spoke about it publicly as a better way to because I knew that legally I understood the case and I know why the verdict was reached. But trying to articulate that to a bunch of people who are emotional,
exactly,
because they and who are trying to argue that he murdered people, the definition of murder doesn't support it. And this is tinfoil hat time. This is why so many cops get off from criminal acts of manslaughter because the DA approves a murder charge essentially to go from murder. But there's no premeditation.
That's what happened with Zimmerman too, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure, but that's there's when he's going for murder, he murdered him. Well, good luck proving that he meant to do it and and thought about it beforehand. Because once you can't prove, and you could probably tell me if I'm wrong on that, but once you prove that it was like in the heat of the moment, it's no longer murder. And unless you're trying to get him from manslaughter also, then the case gets thrown out.
Well, right. So, and this is like, there's a critical difference between like second degree murder and manslaughter, which is like very, very similar, but comes with like a different like mindset and motivation, right? Where like manslaughter,
I think.
Yeah. It's like, so it's like second degree murder.
Manslaughter is like accidental or like in the heat of the moment.
It's negligent.
There's voluntary and involuntary.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
But
then that is the extent to my
yeah. It's but
and that's the A Better Way to a podcast, everyone. Thank you for
we'll leave you with that. We will not elaborate.
I do have to go. I have to paint my 3-year-old's face like a cow.
No worries. I gotta go to a haunted house here in a few hours. I'm very excited.
Hell yeah.
It's one of the best in the country. It's called Haunted Overload. I get my tickets in August, and it is like, it's always listed as one of the top of the country. It is really impressive. It's long, but it sells out like pretty quickly. If you want to go in October, like you can. Like if you want to book it in October, you can. It's already sold out, and it's so cool. So I always go with the first time slot because it's not one of those ones where I can pay to skip the line. I will always pay to skip the line. But you can't. And so like if you show up at like 9:00, it's already like there's a line all the way back, so it could still be an hour. And then I hate it. I hate haunted houses where like you're smushed. So you see someone scare and you know where they're coming from. I want to be truly scared. And it's very hard to do for me. And I love it when it happens. It's awesome.
I love scaring people. I love scaring my wife. My daughter is 3 years old. She likes being scared. She's having me tell her scary stories before bed.
And you have to be like, I want to satisfy this curiosity in her without
but not
way
traumatize
overdoing
her.
it.
Yeah, not traumatized.
I've asked her and like she'll communicate it with me. I'll be like, honey, tell me if this is too scary. But like our staple story that we tell all the time and she like loves to act out during the day. We were outside pretending to be old people. This boy who doesn't listen to his mom and he goes into the woods, even though he's only supposed to go into the woods with a parent. And then he finds a house and an old lady invites him in and bakes him into a loaf of bread.
Nice.
And
sick.
Yeah. Pushes him into the oven. And she's like out there. She's got like her stick that she's using as a walking stick. And she's like, yeah. And that's her pushing the kid into the oven. And I'm like, oh man, this
is that we don't do this at school. Or murder?
That's murder. That's murder. That's premeditated.
That's murder.
She planned it out and was just looking for a little boy to put in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, on that note, Ashley, I can't thank you enough for doing this again. And
hopefully we'll use this one.
Yeah, this one's great. Everything's good. It's all
Andrew
uploading. Andrew showed up. It's literally got all the elements to make it a banger episode. So I appreciate you. Please don't ever change. Oh, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to people?
Oh no. We talked about this in the last one and I gave terrible advice. My piece of advice is always, I'm trying to think how to phrase it because I've already said it basically, but like always assume you could become famous. How about that?
Yeah. That's a good one.
Or infamous. I gave this to I was speaking at GunCon in June. That's John Patton's thing. And we were talking to influencers. And I was on the panel, which is hilarious because I don't have a social media following. I do that old school TV stuff. But I said, they asked me what I would give advice, like if you're just starting out. And I said, always assume you're going to become famous, infamous, whatever. Because like when you're like not like when your podcast is little or whatever, you might say things that like are edgy or you don't think about it. And then like your brand may be like my brand, right? Like, and now you're famous and they're pulling all this stuff that you said that was really, racist or off color or whatever. So I say always assume you could become famous and live your life on what you'd want people to think of, like what you'd want to be if you were famous.
Yeah.
So like, if you want to be a political pundit and you want to have this really hardcore belief system, that's fine. But just kind of keep the mindset of like, this could all go public someday. Who do I want to be? Who do I want to be in my authentic self? And just kind of live your life like that. Because for sure, I mean, it benefited me to have that approach from day one. But I was the Facebook generation, right? Like where like it was brand new and I had to get invited by a college friend and all of my friends like lost their scholarships and stuff for posting drinking pictures and like that. I was of that generation. So we were very like, don't put it in writing minded. Yeah, that's my advice. Always assume you could become famous. So be the person you want to be and don't step out of that because it sounds funny or whatever. If it's not who you'd want to be famous, then don't do it publicly. On record.
Yes.
On the record.
Great. I think that's great advice. I don't remember what your advice was last time, but I'm sure it didn't suck. Or maybe it did. I
think it was but not as like, I don't know. I think I had a bunch of like word salad and it didn't really.
We haven't had somebody give bad advice yet because if they did, I'd know. I'd remember. I would definitely remember. So, yeah. Appreciate you, Ashley. Thank you again for coming on. Thanks. We'll have to link up at some point and maybe SHOT Show or something like that.
Yeah, SHOT should be good. I'm kind of like over the like hustle. Like I used to be all about the hustle and now I like go to bed at like 9 o'clock and stuff. So I do tend to have some free time at SHOT.
Did too. Didn't we do last year? We were
fucking exhausted all the time because we were going nonstop every day.
Because we were working.
You go nonstop all day. Like I have 4 clients there, at any given time. Yeah. I've got 4 clients.
Oh, we were just doing content for shit posts, and even that was exhausting.
Yeah, it's
we were recording quality content most of the time.
We were so worried we didn't have enough, and then we gave it to the editor, and he was like, "This is a lot, dude."
Yeah, he's like, "This is like an hour and a half video," and I was like, "Well, okay, good to know. Make magic," and he did.
So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I usually have like one thing in the evenings, but I try not to schedule a dinner anymore. Like. I make up my dinners the week of. I used to hustle, and you know what? That hustle set up my career. But now I am old and I am tired, and I don't want to do that hustle.
You're not old.
I feel like,
come on, is that what? Because that would make.
Aren't you in your 30s? We're both the same age.
Wait, are we old?
Yeah, we're the same age.
Oh my God,
but I am. We talked about this early on. I am an old white man.
Oh yeah, spiritually.
I'm a old white man in my soul. So. I'm tired and I want to go to sleep, and that's all. That's what it's going to be.
Hell yeah. On that note, and get more sleep, everybody. And check out our Patreon first. Go to our Patreon, subscribe, and
fall asleep
get more
scrolling content on our Patreon.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.